Hello to all viewers. Hello to everyone. I am Shiloh, the last scribe for the house of Jacob. I am a messenger and a true servant of the Almighty. On November 29th, 2018, the Almighty will visit the earth to judge every living thing. On that day, every living thing will be given life or death. This video is part 15 of a series of videos titled The Book of Genesis, Unsealed and Untold. And these series of videos cover everything in the book of Genesis from chapter 1 to chapter 50, with all the confusion removed, with all the allegories removed. In these series of videos you will hear the truth according to the Almighty, according to what the Almighty commanded the house of Jacob to keep recorded. Part 14 ended with Jacob having a vision that showed him a ladder on the earth. And I will start where I left off. Let's begin video number 15. And Jacob began to dream, and he beheld the earth, and there was a ladder upon the earth, like a staircase that went upward. The tip-top of it reached to the atmosphere of the sky where the clouds move. Jacob saw a king, angels, officers, deputies. He saw messengers, priests, prophets, and teachers of the Elohim. They were ascending and descending on it. And they built this ladder, and they caused it to stand firm. Then they took their stand. They struck at the heaven of the Almighty. They reached up to put their strength and power in the heaven of the Almighty. They reached up to take away the heaven of the Almighty by violence. But beyond their control, by fate, they were punished, plagued with disease, defeated, destroyed, and the ladder was brought down. Jacob beheld and saw, above all of them, the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler, the creator of all things, was set up and established. Jacob saw the Almighty was standing above all of them, and he spoke to Jacob, saying, I am the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler, the creator of all things. I am the all-supreme ruler of your grandfather Abraham. I am the all-supreme ruler of your father Isaac. I will give you the land you are resting on. I will give it to your children, to your children's offspring, to your children's offspring's descendants, unto your posterity, and of your posterity unto descendants of moral quality, and unto those descendants of moral quality, unto a practitioner of my righteousness. Then, in number, I will cause your descendants to become as the dust of the earth. I will spread them abroad to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. All the families of the earth that are joined to you will be blessed. All the families of the earth joined to those descendants of moral quality will be blessed. And the Almighty continued speaking to Jacob, saying, I am with you. I am your keeper. Beware, you are treasured in my memory, and I will observe you and watch over you. I will protect you and save your life. I will keep my covenant with you, and I will perform my vow. You will be restrained, because I will keep you within the bounds of my covenant. Wherever you go, I will observe you. I will watch over you. I will protect you and save your life. And I will bring you back into this land again. I will not leave you, nor your children, nor your children's offspring, nor your children's offspring's descendants, nor your posterity of those descendants of moral quality, and of those descendants of moral quality, nor will I leave the practitioner of my righteousness until I have performed and finished what I have spoken to you of. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and became active. He spoke to himself, saying, Surely the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler, is in this place. This was not revealed to me, and I did not consider because I did not know. Standing in awe, Jacob became afraid. He was astonished and fearful. Therefore he repented and became afraid to do terrible things. But he was inspired to honor and respect the Almighty. Jacob spoke to himself, saying, "The place of the Elohim's heaven is dreadful and terrifying." And that was the house and the affairs of the Elohim. And this is the gate entrance to that city. Jacob rose up early in the morning. He took stones that he had used for pillows and used them to set up a pillar for a memorial. He poured oil upon the top of this memorial. And Jacob made a vow, and he promised, saying, "If the Almighty be with me, and if he protects me on this journey that I go, if the Almighty will provide me with food to eat and clothing to put on, so I can come again to my father's house in peace, then the Almighty will be my all-supreme ruler. These stones that I have set up for a memorial will be to honor the house of the Almighty." And Jacob chose and invited guests who were among him to preach to. Then he proclaimed the honor, the reputation, the authority, the character, and the glory of the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler. Jacob named that place Bayith Shaddai, the house of the Almighty. But at first the name of that city was called Luz. Then Jacob departed away from there and continued on his journey, and he came into the land of the people of the east. He considered and observed. He looked and saw a water well in the field. Now there were 3 flocks of sheep resting by it. Out of this water well the people gave water to their flocks, and a great stone covered the well's opening. There, when all the flocks were gathered, they rolled the stone away from the well's opening. Then they gave water to the sheep, and put the stone back in its place over the well's opening. Jacob spoke to the people, asking, "Where are you from, my brethren?" And they answered, saying, "We are of Haran." And Jacob responded, asking, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" And they answered, saying, "Yes, we know him." And Jacob responded, asking, "Is he doing well?" And they answered, saying, "Yes, he is doing well. His daughter Rachel is coming with their sheep." And Jacob responded, saying, "It is not yet the highest point of the day, neither is it time for the cattle to be gathered together. Go, you can give water to the sheep and feed them." And the people replied to Jacob, saying, "We cannot until all the flocks are assembled and gathered together. We cannot until they roll the stone from off the opening of the water well." Now while Jacob was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's flock of sheep. Rachel observed and watched over her father's sheep. She cared for them and protected them. Rachel was the daughter of Laban, and Laban is Jacob's mother's brother. Now when Jacob saw Rachel with her father's sheep, he went near the stone that was covering the opening of the water well. Then he rolled the stone from off of the opening of the water well. Now Laban had men equipped with weapons under his rule. These men were equipped to handle other armed men, and Jacob also had armed men under his rule. Jacob was armed with a weapon, and he also was equipped to handle armed men. Then Jacob started giving water to the sheep of Laban. Among the men armed with weapons who were equipped to handle other armed men, Jacob spoke to Rachel. He gently touched her and kissed her. Jacob lifted up his voice and began to weep. Jacob told Rachel that he is Rebekah's son, and Rebekah is her father's brother. So Rebekah ran and told her father Laban. When Laban listened to the announcement about his sister's son Jacob, Laban ran to meet him. Laban embraced Jacob with his arms and hands and gently kissed him, then brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things that happened. And Laban spoke to Jacob, saying, "Surely you are of the same strength as my flesh and bones. Surely you are my brethren." When Jacob had lived with him a period of 1 month, Laban spoke to Jacob, saying, "Because you are my brother, should you serve me for nothing? Tell me what your wages will be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had a soft heart and a gentle spirit. She was timid and delicate. She spoke soft and gentle words. Now Rachel was very beautiful. She was of a beautiful figure and a beautiful appearance. Rachel was well favored. Jacob loved Rachel as his own family and as a friend. He loved to eat and drink with her. He loved to share wisdom with her. And Jacob greatly desired her. Jacob spoke to Rachel's father Laban, saying, I am the servant of the Almighty, the All-Supreme Being, the All-Supreme Ruler. Now, for your younger daughter Rachel, I will serve you 7 years. And Laban responded to Jacob, saying, It is better I give her to you, than give her to another man. Therefore you stay with me. For Rachel, Jacob, a servant of the Almighty, served Laban 7 years. Because of the love Jacob had for Rachel, the time he served her father Laban seemed but as a few days to him. When his days of service were fulfilled, Jacob spoke to Laban, saying, Give me my wife, so I can show affections to her, so I can go in to know her as my wife. Laban gathered all the men of that place together because he had prepared a feast. And in the night it came to pass, Laban took his daughter Leah to give to Jacob. Now for a handmaid, Laban had given his daughter Leah his maid Zilpah. Now Jacob went in unto Leah to show her affections, show him his affections, and to know her as a wife. But in the morning Jacob looked and saw he was with Leah, not Rachel. Therefore he spoke to Laban, asking, What is this you have done to me? I am a servant and worshipper of the Almighty, the All-Supreme Ruler. Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why have you betrayed me? Why have you deceived me? And Laban answered Jacob, saying, In our country, to give you the younger daughter before the firstborn daughter is something that must not be done. You have fulfilled 7 years of service to have Leah. Now, you servant and worshipper of the Almighty, for another 7 years of service I will give you my younger daughter Rachel, but you will serve me another 7 years. And Jacob did so. After 7 years, Laban gave Jacob his daughter Rachel to be a wife also. Jacob went in unto Rachel with affection and to know her as his wife. To Rachel, Laban had given Bilhah to be her handmaid. Now Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah, and Jacob served Laban another 7 years. When the Almighty saw that Leah was not loved as Rachel, the Almighty opened her womb to bring forth children, but Rachel's womb remained sterile. Leah became pregnant with a child and gave birth to a son. She spoke to herself, saying, Now my husband will love me. And she chose an invited guest. She preached about the Almighty. She spoke to the guest, saying, The Almighty has considered me and observed me. He has seen my affliction. And she brought her son before them and called his name Reuben. Leah became pregnant again and gave birth to a second son. She spoke to herself, saying, The Almighty knew I have been hated. And she chose an invited guest. She preached about the Almighty. She spoke to the guest, saying, The Almighty has listened to me. He has paid attention to me. And she brought her son before them and called his name Simeon. Leah became pregnant again and gave birth to another son. She spoke to herself, saying, Because I have given birth to 3 sons for him, my husband will be united with me. And she chose an invited guest. She preached to them about the Almighty. She brought her son before them and called his name Levi. Leah became pregnant again, and she gave birth to a 4th son. She chose an invited guest. She preached about the Almighty, saying, I will praise the Almighty, the All-Supreme Being, the All-Supreme Ruler, the Creator of all things. And she brought her son before them and called his name Judah. After giving birth to 4 sons, Leah stopped having children. Now Rachel believed she could not give birth to a child for Jacob, so she became very jealous of her sister Leah. When Rachel's jealousy escalated to a jealous anger, she spoke to her husband Jacob, saying, "Give me children, or else I will die before my time." From long suffering, Jacob began to be angry at Rachel, and he spoke to her, saying, "Am I in the place of the Almighty? It is He that has restrained your womb." And Rachel responded, saying, "Look, Bilhah, my maid, you go in with affections to her, and know her to be your wife. She will give birth to children for me, so I will have children by her." And Rachel gave her handmaid Bilhah to Jacob to be a wife. And Jacob went in with affections to her. Bilhah became pregnant, and she gave birth to a son for Jacob. And Rachel spoke to herself, saying, "The Almighty has judged me, and He has executed His judgment." Rachel chose and invited guests. She preached about the Almighty, saying, "The Almighty has considered me and my trouble. The Almighty has heard my voice. Therefore He has given me a son." And Rachel brought her son before them, and called the boy's name Dan. Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, became pregnant again, and gave birth to a second son for Jacob. Rachel spoke to herself, saying, "I have bitterly struggled with my sister. Now I have power to overcome." Rachel chose and invited guests. She spoke to them, saying, "I have had many great struggles. Now I have strength to overcome. I am able to accomplish and endure." She brought the boy before the guests and called his name Naphtali. Now Leah believed she could no longer give birth to children, so she took her handmaid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob to be a wife. Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, gave birth to a son for Jacob. Leah spoke to herself, saying, "Good fortune comes." Leah named the boy Gad. Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, gave birth to a second son for Jacob. Leah spoke to herself, saying, "Now I am happy. The daughters of the town will call me blessed." Leah named the boy Asher. During the days of the wheat harvest, Reuben went out and found herbs and apples in the field. He brought them to his mother Leah. Now Rachel asked Leah, "Will you give me some of your son's apples?" Leah spoke to Rachel, saying, "Is it a small matter that you have taken my husband? Now would you take away my son's apples also?" Leah continued speaking to Rachel, saying, "For my son's apples, Jacob will lie with me tonight." And in the evening, Jacob had come from the field. Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in and lay with me. I have paid for you with my son's apples." And Jacob laid in affection with Leah that night. Now with interest the Almighty listened to Leah's voice, and He understood her case and granted the request of her plea. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a fifth son for Jacob. Leah spoke to herself, saying, "Because I have given my handmaid to my husband, the Almighty has given me my reward." Leah called the boy's name Issachar. Leah became pregnant again, and she gave birth to a sixth son for Jacob. She spoke to herself, saying, "Because I have given him 6 sons, my husband will live with me." Leah chose and invited guests. She preached about the Almighty. She spoke to them, saying, "The Almighty has bestowed a precious gift upon me. He has bestowed endurance upon me." She brought her son before them and called his name Zebulun. Afterwards, Leah gave birth to a daughter. She called her girl's name Dinah. Now the Almighty kept Rachel in His remembrance. He thought well upon her. Therefore the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler, remembered Rachel. With interest the Almighty listened to Rachel's voice. He understood her case and granted the request of her plea. The Almighty opened her womb so she could give birth to children. Rachel became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She chose an invited guest. She preached about the Almighty, saying, "The Almighty has taken away my disgrace. He has removed my shame. The Almighty has added another son to me." And Rachel brought her son before them and called his name Joseph. When Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob spoke to Laban, saying, "Send me away so I can go back to my country, to my own place. Give me my wives and my children, because I have served you for them. Let me go. You know all the service that I have accomplished and completed for you." And Laban responded, saying, "If I have found favor in your eyes, I pray that you stay. I have learned by experience that the Almighty has blessed me for your sake." And Laban continued speaking to Jacob, saying, "You appoint your wages, and I will give it." But Jacob responded, saying, "On all sides, you know how I serve and worship the Almighty. You know how I have served you, and you know how your cattle are with me. You had a little before I came. Now it has increased to be a multitude. Since my coming, the Almighty has blessed you. Now, when will I provide for my own affairs? When will I provide for my own house?" And Laban responded to Jacob, asking, "What can I give you?" And Jacob answered, saying, "You will not give me anything. I will keep your flock and feed them again if you will do this thing for me. Today I will pass through all your flock, removing all the speckled and spotted cattle from among the flock. I will be removing all the brown sheep and those brown with some white spots that are among the sheep. I will be removing the spotted and speckled goats from among the flock of goats. These are my wages. In the time to come, my righteousness will answer for me. When my wages come before your face, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and every one that is not brown among the sheep with me, will be counted stolen." And Laban replied, saying, "I will see to it, so it will be according to your word." So Jacob took the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, all the brown sheep, and every one of those brown with some white spots among the sheep. And Jacob listened with interest as he heard the words of Laban's sons. He heard them saying, "Jacob has taken away all that belonged to our father. He has taken away everything that has gotten our father his wealth, his honor, and glory." Once in the presence of Laban, Jacob looked at Laban, and he saw anger on Laban's face. Laban's favor was not toward Jacob as before. Now the Almighty came and visited Jacob and spoke to him and commanded him, saying, "Return to the land of your fathers. I will be with you." Jacob called for Rachel and Leah to come to the field to his flock. And Jacob spoke to both his wives, saying, "You know with all my ability, all my strength, and all my wealth, I serve and worship the Almighty, the all-supreme being, the all-supreme ruler. And you know I have served your father with all my power also. But your father has mocked me and has deceitfully dealt with me. He has changed my wages 10 times, but the Almighty has not allowed him to hurt me. I see your father's countenance, and he is angry with me. His favor is not toward me as before. But the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler of my fathers, is with me. If Laban tells me that the speckled of the herd will be my wages, then all the cattle gave birth to speckled cattle. If Laban tells me that the ring stripe will be my wages, then all the cattle gave birth to ring stripe. Therefore the Almighty has taken away the cattle from your father and given them to me. At the time the cattle became pregnant, the leader of the people increased the work. He raised a levy and increased it. Now I had a dream, and in this dream I lifted up my eyes and I saw cattle. Those that were ring-striped, speckled, and spotted were superior and excelled. Then the leaders of the people stirred themselves up and arose to cut off the increase of those cattle. In a dream the Almighty spoke to me, saying, I am the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler, of Shaddai Bayith, where you anointed the pillar of stones, where you promised and vowed to me. I have seen all that Laban has done to you. Now arise, you get from off this land, return to the land of your fathers. And Rachel and Leah responded to Jacob, asking, Is there any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? He sold us, then consumed and wasted our money also. Are we not counted to him as strangers? All the riches that the Almighty has taken away from our father and given to you is now ours and our children. Whatever the Almighty has commanded you, you do it. And Jacob rose up, then put his sons and wives upon camels. This is the end of part 15 of my video series titled The Book of Genesis, Unsealed and Untold, and it covers my manuscript titled The Almighty, the Beginning, His Creation of Mankind, His Promise to Judge Mankind, His War against the Elohim, His New World and His Order. I am Shiloh, the last scribe for the house of Jacob. Watch my videos, follow me, and discover the recorded truth about the Almighty, His power, His glory, His honor, His reputation, His experiences with, and His message to all individual species of persons on the earth.